Hello, everybody. Celia Waterhouse here. Thank you so much for joining us at On Point Mentors. Today, we have Collin Miles. Now, Collin is the CEO of Miles Better Accounting, aka the numbers guy. I love that. And you're going to be talking about let the numbers decide today. Welcome, Collin.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Really excited to be here. I've been watching some of the previous interviews, so looking forward to adding my angle to the difference that a business mentor has when we're on the finance side.
I've been looking forward to this conversation. I've heard a lot about you, and of course, I've met you briefly before, and everybody always has wonderful things to say about you. So I'm excited, and let the numbers decide, I think is a really intriguing title. So tell me about, what do you want to talk about today, and how did you get into, let's start over. How did you become the numbers guy?
All right. Okay. Well, that's a long and convoluted story, and we may go longer than an hour if we'll do that. But I'll give you the abridged version, just because I think it does add some value to how I became the numbers guy as such. Ultimately, now I'm an accountant. We're a virtual-based accounting firm. We currently reside in South Carolina, where we're working with some clients. But you can guess from my accent that I'm from England. So I started my career actually at college, at university, where I studied to become an accountant. I did accounting degree, but back in the 80s, and yes, I'm one of the 80s children, accounting was extremely dull. A very, very traditional methodology. Yes, exactly, lots of faces. And I realized that you'll see as we go through this discussion that my personality was not to be a typical accountant with a little bean counter sitting in the corner. But it did remind me of something as a child that I loved watching from Sesame Street. And I loved the character, the Count. I love to count my money. So that was the inference. That was what got me going. I love counting money, so the money and numbers and things like that. But I realized that actually my personality wasn't going to let me be an accountant at that time. And I pivoted into management, into retail management, and worked my way through various career developments. And that's actually where I ended up meeting Faye Chappell back in the late 90s when we worked, both of us as retail directors at Godiva Chocolates. So I was picking up obviously how numbers were working, but I was always seeing it just from the senior management side, and I was just given them. I was just given the numbers and told this is what they were doing, and they made sense. Hence, letting the numbers decide. But I didn't really truly understand because the businesses were just giving us the information. So a couple of things happened in my life in the fact that I really got sucked into corporate world. And this is a story that many people have as you move to become an entrepreneur. And there was a moment in my life where my wife said to me, I love you dearly, Collin, but I don't like you anymore. And I said, well, what do you mean? Yeah, exactly. It was quite brutal. My wife's very direct. She is a fully qualified accountant and more of the traditional type of accountant. But she said, I don't like you, what you've become and the way that you've spiraled in your career and your inner self. And my personality had changed dramatically. So I quit my job, quit my six-figure job, got on a plane, went out to the US where my boss was and quit. Now, there's another story here, which is a bit sort of life-changing. I hadn't told my wife I was going to quit because I felt really despondent that I was going to have to do this. And I came home to find she'd gone to work, to find that I couldn't get in my own house. She had locked the front door because she'd gone out the side door, and I didn't take the side keys with me when I went to the US. So I ended up sitting on the front porch for a couple of hours, and I'm not ashamed to say I bawled my eyes out for a little bit. There was actually a sense of relief. And there is a point to this in the fact that if you don't enjoy what you're doing and it's becoming an effect of your life, then actually you need to change it. That's not what we're going to talk about today. But the numbers, coming back to let the numbers decide, were playing a thing. I was doing a job that I didn't like because I felt we needed the money, the income. The numbers were telling me at that point I needed to earn more money. But actually, that was only part of the numbers. So long story short, changed my job, pivoted into running my own business, to becoming an entrepreneur. You and I touched very briefly at the beginning that you're a scuba diver. Well, I decided I needed something as a passion. So I learned to scuba dive. and really enjoyed it. And it was a bit of a relief, a bit of a change going underwater. You really had to focus on yourself and not obviously and other people and stuff. And so the numbers and business and general life could be eased away. So that was good. I decided that I would go and hang out at my dive center while I was on a career break. And the owner at that point said, look, I can't pay you, but why don't you become an instructor with us because you're enjoying this and I'll cover the costs. He had an exit plan strategy. His numbers were telling him, I think you might buy my dive center. And I did. I ended up loving the business so much that I bought the dive center. And this is where then the numbers really start to come to play, in that I then had to work out how the hell I was going to learn about the numbers, because nobody was giving me the numbers. The numbers were my numbers, and I had to know what they were. Obviously, my wife, being an accountant, and having had an accounting degree and the business support and being corporate, I knew what I was doing. But now the numbers really had to be, they were my numbers. I really had to own them. I couldn't go home and say, well, we had a bad sales day. Because if you have a bad sales day when you're running your own business, as we all now know, the money doesn't come in. You've got to make an understanding. So it was then that we really started to focus on building what I would like to call the Miles Better 4 pillars of success. And I had to build some systems. And so that's really how I ended up becoming the numbers guy, in that I was running my own business. I expanded. I ended up with 8 dive centers in various locations in the UK and overseas. And I had to know what they were doing. I had to know the numbers. Right. But I wanted to do it on a shoestring, because every penny I spent out was going to cause a problem. We then sold the dive center business in around about 2012, 2013. We took another career break. An opportunity came up for us to take some breaks. But at that point, by then, I had realized that actually small business and entrepreneurs did not understand their numbers. All right. And because of that, it became emotionally draining for them. They were on a treadmill to nowhere sometimes. And so it was about, okay, well, how can we help with all of my learning, all of my systems that I had developed, all of the experience that I had? How could we turn that around to become the numbers guy for small businesses and entrepreneurs? And that's ultimately what we've been doing in the last sort of 6 years, is moving ourselves into being business coaches, business mentor support, and ultimately accountants, bookkeepers, virtual CFOs, depending on what word you want to use. But it's allowed us to start to turn back and give back as I've moved through my career, that I can start to help small businesses. And that's where we focus. So that's where we now look at doing let the numbers decide, because they take away the emotion. And we touch on that in the summit. So I'm not going to steal all of that. Those who are watching here, I want to come see us at the summit, because lots of us have got lots of fun things as well. But you know, the numbers are the alpha and the omega of everything. Right. You mentioned at the beginning that you don't like numbers, Celia. Why do you not like numbers? What is it? What from an emotional point of view? What does the numbers do emotionally to you? Why do you not like them?
I didn't say I didn't like numbers. I did say I'm not the numbers girl.
No, that's fine. But you know, what are they? If I say to you, you know, what are your numbers like at this week? This in your business? Is it something that goes, yeah, or is it something you go, oh, no?
You know, numbers to me, you know, when we deal with, I don't know, finances or wealth building, I try not to get too emotional about my numbers. We talk about emotions and numbers, and I know you talk about that in the summit, and people can watch both. So, so you know, I try not to fluctuate too much on my emotions with the numbers. So they're just kind of a gauge of where I'm at and what I need to do. And you're right, let the numbers decide. If the numbers are here, I got to do this. If the numbers are here, I got to do this. I suppose with numbers, I mean, or dislike of numbers, as you said, I tend to like a relationship with a person and the conversation that can go anywhere, and it's not so black and white on mathematics. Put it that way. Does that make sense?
That makes sense. And that's a common statement that people think there's actually a lot of math inside accounting. There is, but ultimately it's about interpreting what the numbers mean. And that's what we mean by the numbers describe. Nowadays, with so many more software and apps, the older phrase, there's an app for that. We try and rephrase that, there's an accountant for that. Because in fact, just to pick exactly what you just said, an app or a piece of software is not intelligent. It can't make that conversational discussion. It can't make that decision. Am I allowed to do that? Should I do that? What does this number mean? And so as a result, that's really where we've pivoted ourselves to become more of this. Another concept that I've sort of developing is the accounting translator. It's a phrase from Warren Buffett. Accounting Translator is mine, but the statement comes from Warren Buffett, who's perhaps one of the most famous business people out there. So we all know who he is. Accounting is the language of business. All right. Now, I'll caveat that with, it's a shame so many small entrepreneurs and business people are not fluent, because there is a mystique. There's a black voodoo magic, as I like to refer to it, that accountants, lawyers do the same thing, doctors do the same thing. We have these funky words, debtors, creditors, trial balances, all these sort of words. Really, I think we were created them to try and, keep our clients, no, we don't want you to know what we do because you might do it yourself. Well, of course, unfortunately, with software, that's what a lot of entrepreneurs are doing. But the challenge is that you don't get that interaction. You don't get that business support. You don't get that. Why did you do that? Had you thought about doing that? And or just the other way, that's not allowed. You might think you can claim that against your taxes and your business, but the app won't say no. The app will just go, take the picture, scan the picture, and it does it for you, but it doesn't know whether it's doing it correctly, whether it's missing something. So you're right. The numbers let the numbers decide, but they need to be interpreted. And that's where a guide in your corner can come along and sort of assist. And that's one of the other things that I believe as a business mentor coach, is that I'm coaching you on to how to interpret the numbers, how to feel that they become your friend, that they're not alien. And so the word plain speak is something that I resonate a lot when I'm mentoring or working with a client, because what the hell does debtor mean? What does debtor mean to you? Debtor actually is a really odd one, because if I said a debtor, most people see in debt, they think it's something you owe. Actually, a debtor is somebody who owes you money. So if I was a client of yours and you sent me an invoice, I'm a debtor. And it actually comes from the banking world, where the banking world is in reverse of actually it's the banking world that's right. We're in reverse of it. So when you are an example in your business bank, when you see a credit balance, you're actually a creditor to the bank, because the bank owes you money, because it's your money and they've got it. When you're in debit or in overdraft situation, you owe them. So it just seems the other way around, and so I've got a debit, I've got money in my bank. Well, yes, actually then you're a creditor to the bank, and the other way around. So it's those type of things that I think, having a guru in your corner, which is another phrase that I like to use, that can help you translate those numbers, is a powerful tool, that again comes back to letting the numbers decide rather than emotionally going, I want to do that. Well, how do you know you want to do that? Well, because emotionally I want to be the best. Well, okay, you've got to have a plan, and you've got to have a business plan, and there are elements of it. And so it's about demystifying, and that's some of the things that I like to try and do.
That's interesting, because just the other night I had a girlfriend come over, and we were sitting around our fire table having a glass of wine. She's an accountant, but she works in mergers and acquisitions. Okay, and, I find her job fascinating when she talks about what she's doing. And I'm like, how can I shadow you? Can I learn more about it? Because, okay, I'm not the numbers girl. However, and I have to redeem myself, because it's not that I hate numbers. When I was 50,
I didn't mean you on the spot. I didn't mean, you're obviously a successful businesswoman, so you know them. So that was perhaps a little bit of a thing. But most entrepreneurs, passion is not the numbers, because if they were, I wouldn't have a job. I wouldn't be able to support them with virtual CFO services or with business mentoring. So I'm really pleased that most people aren't the numbers. Like if you're sitting here going, okay, well, what else can I teach? It's it's about the passion. So you're saying about the girl, the lady, your colleague.
Yeah. So, okay, we talk about business mentoring, talk about, mentoring people and understanding their numbers. So where does one start? Like, I was fascinated by her job. And so I thought, God, that would be so cool if I could know just as much as she did. Because then you see businesses, and as an entrepreneur, I'm always looking around and always creating things. And you look at businesses in an entirely different way when you have the numbers, right? So where would one start? Like, tell me the process. How does one even start?
Well, again, like with everything in life, that's a huge cake. All right. And the old adage of how do you eat an elephant? Well, you eat them in bite-sized chunks. All right. So like in if you're launching your business, if you're becoming a life coach, you need to niche. Not niche is not the right word. You need to think about what is it you want to do. She's become an expert in her field over many years, and it's been layering on. Like you're an expert in your field. And if I reframe the same question the other way around, you'd say to me, well, you might want to start here, and then we're going to layer that on. We're going to layer that on. We're going to layer that on as well. And that's the same with numbers, really. So, or the approach. So what we like to try and feel is a good start is that, again, hence learning the terminology, hence the accounting translator concept that we came up with that takes those funny words and starts to make you think about what do they mean, so that at least if you start to see them, people start talking about them. We all use these in acronyms, and we reduce the letters, TB, trial balance, return on investment, ROI, and we all get these very jargony words. So I think, the first phase would be to start to understand those words. And one of the things that we do here is very much that's a starting point. Let's take the 42 basic numbers, basic phrases and words, and break them into plain speak. Make them feel that there's something else. Stock is a great one. Better way of thinking about stock is piles of cash. All right. Because when you look at a shop and you've got all this stock, it's money that owner, that business has tied up. Look around your home, same sort of thing. Where's all your money when you go, I don't seem to have any money in my bank? Well, you look around and go, I've got a beautiful home. That's the thing. And in fact, I did have one client who I was asking, we were talking about the numbers, and there was we were talking about where his funds were, and he did start looking around the room, and I took that to mean, well, I'm looking at it. So you can see that there. So again, it's what do you want to understand and what are you trying to achieve? So it might be, again, as an example, if your end goal is to get yourself out of debt, well, then we need to look at what you're spending. If your end goal is to buy another company, well, first of all, we need to understand, have you got the collateral and like buying a new home? It's no different. Where do you start? You look in an area and you move on in that sort of format. So there's no one start point, because you need to drill down, like everything, as to what is it you want to achieve. Because if you don't have specific plans, and that's one of the blocks to success that often happens in the numbers game. Big thing, I want to be successful. Okay, well, what do you mean by that? I want to earn more money. Okay, we're getting down a little bit. What do you mean by that? Do you want great sales? Do you want great cash flow? Or do you want great profit? Now, what of those three would you most like to have, Celia?
Okay, sales, profit.
Cash or profit? Which do you think is the most important of those three items?
Profit.
Very good. It's very good. But if you speak to most entrepreneurs and you say, how is your business? Oh yeah, my sales yesterday were phenomenal. So sales are vanity, is what I like to say, because often an entrepreneur will run around and go, I've got a brilliant sales day. Okay, yeah, great sales. That's a good start. We have to generate sales. So sales are vanity, profit is sanity, but cash is king. All right. So that's another fun one. And that would be another point that we would start with somebody, is to, an analogy I would probably give, which is a very, very simple one. We're going to open a very small business, you and I. Okay. We decided that people want to buy $10 bills. Okay. We're going to sell just $10 bills. All right. So nice, easy product, only one product. And we think the market won't pay $10. They're only going to pay $5. we're going to have huge, if we convince them that they're not counterfeit money, because obviously people go, why are you selling them for $5? Are you a drug dealer? Are you trying to steal it? Which is probably what drug dealers do. Love watching Ozark at the moment on the TV as a series where he launders money all over the place. So there's an accountant there. He's counting his money. He's watching his business. So lots of pop culture as well that you can look at and see and stuff. So, but anyway, so we would have huge sales. We would have huge cash flow going in and out. So 2 of the 3 criteria doing really well. Have we made any money? Not if we're buying them for 10 and selling them for 5. So we have to understand, hence those numbers on, if I was to look at that business and said, it's turning over $1 billion. Sounds like it's a successful business, doesn't it? It generated $500 million of cash in a month. Wow, this is Amazon all over, isn't it? It lost $500 million in a month. 3 numbers, how powerful those 3 numbers can be, and how if we look at the wrong number and we don't understand the number, that's the problem. And what often happens unfortunately, with small entrepreneurs, bigger businesses obviously have the accounting systems. They've got people like me in the background looking at the numbers, people like Warren Buffett training away. But little people, and I don't mean that in the derogatory term, but small micro businesses, entrepreneurs like myself and others that I work with, they're focused on the passion of doing the data, of actually servicing their customers, providing the information that they need, that they don't look at the numbers for weeks and for months. Well, if we've been doing this business for $10 and selling it for $5, now that's a very dramatic example, but it could happen in the fact that you buy it for $5, you sell it for 10, you look like you're making money, but actually the 5 in the middle, you've got an office, you've got all these other bits that you haven't thought, advertising, Facebook, and all the media, social, and suddenly, every time we sell something for $10, it's cost us $11 or £10, £11 for our UK clients who will be watching and stuff. But currency is irrelevant. But it's very easy to think you're being successful because you see this money coming in and you see money going out and money coming in and it's all looking great. But actually, if your numbers aren't, and then the next point, let the numbers decide, needs to be real-time numbers. You need to be working with your numbers, ideally, not necessarily daily, but certainly monthly. And many entrepreneurs, and same with personal taxes, we don't look at them until once a year. Well, you can't make a decision based on once a year as a small business. And that's, again, where it comes back to letting the numbers decide is, well, they can make huge decisions, but you need to know them today or this month, because what you do this month will impact next month and very on. And unfortunately, most entrepreneurs only want to speak to their CPAs or their accountants once a year. And usually, if you follow the old school, your year end, an example would be if we use the UK, you have 9 months after your financial year to file. We come back to the US, you have 4 months to file your taxes after the year end. And most people don't even look at their tax returns until a couple of weeks before they have to file. That will only reveal what you did 15, 16 months ago may have been completely the wrong decision, and you've not changed it. So the numbers being all powerful need to be real time. Second point, plain speaking, real time. And that's what the business coaching or a accountant, CPA, somebody in your corner who you work with on a regular basis, who becomes that conversation, who becomes that sort of supporter of you, gets to understand your business and gets to be involved, will make the difference to helping let the numbers decide.
So if we say that a lot of our audiences, our audience here are coaches, let's say they're coaches. Mm-hmm. And they're just starting out. So maybe, especially now, they're losing their job, because of COVID and a whole bunch of other things. But they've been in human resources for 25 years. So they want to now mentor and coach. Mm-hmm. Where do you suggest they start, or how would you even launch them, and advise them and mentor them through the process from, just starting out? They have their intellectual property, they know how to help people, but they want to start a business as an entrepreneur. So let's go through that process.
Yeah, well, again, there's usually there are perhaps 5 key questions that you would want to ask, or I would want to ask them in the initial phase, is, the setup, the structure of your business. I mean, again, in all countries, both the UK and in the US, it's about getting the right structure so that you understand that you are compliant, first of all. Now, that's often, unfortunately, most people, entrepreneurs, that's the last thing they want to think about, but it can make a difference as to whether they're successful or not successful. It can make a difference as to how they, what they can claim and what they can't claim. Again, always coming back to let the numbers decide, the numbers guy. I'm going to drive it back to the numbers because they are the alpha and they are the omega. They're the first thing you're going to do. You know, open a bank account. Well, what do? I put a number in it. I put $1 in to open the bank account. So there's a number. And it'll be the last thing they do when we leave this mortal earth, is that the IRS man or the HMRC man is going to come and take his taxes. So there's death, there's taxes, only two certainties in life, death and taxes. And most entrepreneurs would rather die than pay their taxes. So it's rather extreme. And it's been in a poll, number one fear for an entrepreneur is failure. Number two is dying. Well, okay, well, we'd rather fail than die, type situation and pay our taxes. So anyway, we digress as always, but because I love digressing. Stories galore. The calls with my clients often are 20 minutes of numbers and 40 minutes of just general chat. So, but coming back to your question, it's about obviously understanding, number one, perhaps your structure. And working out what is the thing. And there are different structures. Obviously, there's sole trading, there's formal companies, etc. And they have pros and they have cons. So it's a thinking about that. Because if you can get your base, like building a house, if you build your foundation, before you put your foundations in, before you even start putting your floor plan down. You don't even start decorating until the walls are up. Well, a bit like opening and starting a business, you want to have your vision. If you when you first moved into your home, you had a vision about where perhaps the piece of art that's behind you, what was going to go. You had another, you had a big picture. And that's great. That's as they're coaching, that's the client that they're working with, the niche client that they want to work with. But that also has an impact as to, we have to think about pricing. We have to think about reverse engineering, because if you've had a job, you've lost your job, and you were earning, I'm going to pick a number out thing, $100,000 a year, and that's what you need to live on. Well, guess what? Your business has got to generate $100,000, £100,000 of post-tax profit. I'm getting technical now, not cash, not sales. You can see I can go off and do $100,000 or £100,000, but if I need £100,000, that's not my money, because I've got taxes and I've got expenses and things like that. So we have to start building up. Now, if we've worked out that therefore $100,000 is a $200,000 business, that's what we need to do. Just keep it very easy. Can we generate $200,000 with the products that you want to do? And Faye has worked hard at that in her pricing, in the teaching that comes through the On Point Mentors program. So guys, if you're watching and you haven't taken her courses, do it, because there's lots of value in there. But it's true. Everything she talks about is I would wholly support, because it's about reverse engineering. If you're going to sell something for $97 and you need $200,000 of revenue, that is an awful lot of product. Yeah. If you can work a product that's got $20,000 a year revenue, well, now you've only got to sell 10 of those. But there's a lot of people going after that really big client. And so you probably need to have a model within the middle. So it's about having letting the numbers decide as to whether it's even feasible. And it may be that as a coach and somebody from an HR example, and actually I do have a couple of clients who were exactly what you've described, who were HR directors who decided to take a break and have pivoted into coaching and stuff. But they have found that and this is perhaps not what the people want to hear, is that you have to have some contract work, that actually you may have to do some internship to build that network, because transitioning from an employee to an entrepreneur is a whole nother mindset. Again, it's one of the things that included in one of the courses that I've been developing, which surprisingly is called Let the Numbers Decide, has a module on the mindset that you need to change from being an employee to an entrepreneur, because you are so used to your every twice a month, if you're in the North American, getting your paycheck. If you're in the UK, getting your paycheck at the end of the month. From that paycheck has been taken most of the taxes that you will owe. So that in essence, so the money is yours. Well, guess what? As an entrepreneur, It's not going to happen. So if you're used to that, you need to think about, what is your business going to do? What's your business going to look like in those first few months? And it may be that it's going to look horrible, that it's going to come back to our example earlier, where you're selling stuff. The money is just going out of the business. So starting an entrepreneurial business as your own sole income, without some backing, without some capital, without some support of maybe a partner, if you've got somebody who's working, because it's going to be painful. There's no hope thing about that. These people that start think now, a side hustling, that's perhaps another method. Have your job, start the side hustle, build the side hustle, and then transition down. What's happening? Same thing. We're letting the numbers decide. The numbers are getting bigger here, and the numbers can get smaller here. And that will be, so again, coming back to mindset, transition, the numbers play everything, because ultimately we can love what we do and we can give it away for free, which is another thing that entrepreneurs are very bad at, giving it away for free. We have to give away free stuff, of course. That's about creating value. That's about, but it's free in a different way. It's a free in the fact that it's, you know, I'm going to give you something for free, therefore I should be allowed to perhaps interact with you. I want to add value. And obviously in the current online world, with all the, you know, giving away free value and adding value and creating yourself as the expert is important. But that takes time. And coming back to the numbers, if you need to earn $10,000 a month, $5,000 a month, you need to know that those numbers are just going to get bigger and bigger and bigger. And then the emotion comes in, doesn't it? Because then you're worried about your numbers. So you need to have the plan. And that's where working with a business mentor who's going to, such as myself, or obviously Faye or Linda or Stacy or any of the Carolyn, all of the other guys that are in the business side are going to say all of the same thing, that you need to have a plan. It needs to be specific. You need to value what you're doing, but you also need to understand where that fits in the marketplace. And sometimes undervaluing yourself will do yourself just as much harm, because you get known as the cheap person. And, you know, and then when you've got a client, you go, well, actually, I need to double your fees now because actually it's not working. They're like, so, but you have to start small. So unfortunately, there's no magic bullet. If there was, I think we'd all be doing a lot more very quickly and just launching businesses all over the place. It's being true to yourself, I think, is also, and surrounding yourself with people and a network that can support you.
Right.
So, which is where the On Point comes on as an amazing directory of network, isn't it? I mean, we're all helping each other, and hopefully the guys who are listening are part of the thing, but also other people who perhaps are interested, you know, can understand that the network that On Point is growing to become has a lot of value. I've met so many great people, so yourself in the last 6 months, who add support, and with, you know, and I think that's also a key thing, that you need to have people in your corner supporting you and championing what you do, and then look at the numbers and go, okay, because the numbers may not look good to start with, and you'll need some emotional support to go, okay, but if there's a plan and we can see where it's going forward, and that's also, you know, again, we work with clients who've come to us who are in terrible debt because they haven't looked at their numbers, they haven't worked with real time, all the other bits and pieces. And then we have to remove the emotion because they are almost suicidal. And we, you know, I have had one client who basically did end up in therapy, and he was suicidal and hadn't shared anything with his family, and became quite a drain for me. And I actually had to say to the guy, you know, this is becoming something that I'm not comfortable in talking about. Right. But I had a friend who was a therapist, who was able to help, who was able to bring him back. And so again, you use your own network. You can't be all things to all people, although we like to be as entrepreneurs. Right. We have to accept that there are people out there that can help us. You know, I think it's quite interesting when you talk about the life versus business mentor. And we had a little conversation about this earlier, is that what I find is that a lot of my life mentors also help in the business side. Like we've got some mentors that have run real estate companies and, you know, run, you know, managers of big accounting firms and, you know, so many business mentors that left that world, the corporate world, and now are helping women in transition and all of that. But they use their business knowledge to help stabilize the emotions, and vice versa. You yourself, you know, we said, you know, you said, I don't deal with the emotion stuff. Yes, you do. Yes, you do. Yeah, and I think at the beginning, and the use you rightly pointed out that I did, and it's only actually, and I think that's where the fun thing is when you work with other colleagues like yourself and who come with the same approach, but from a slightly different angle. It makes you think, and I would say the same that now that I'm thinking about the different way. When I was first talking with Faye about the whole on-point mentors, it was like, well, that's not, and she's like, just think about how you tell me what you talk to in a client for an hour. And I'm like, okay, well, I coach them and I tell them, and you're right. So we all have the things, and somebody who's become a life coach who's come from the business world totally gets that emotion. And if we go all the way back to my opening Gambit story, I can pull on that now as the fact that I almost had an emotional breakdown and did have some therapy sessions as a result of it, because I just became so, almost in a way, so focused on the business that I didn't allow the life. We didn't, back in those sort of days, there wasn't really quite the life either. It's now a more, another word I talk about is empathy. It's a word that people band around all over the place.
Yeah.
And what does that really mean to us? What does that mean to you? What does that mean to me? It's very, I need to have empathy. Well, empathy with what? Empathy is more about, perhaps, again, walking that mile in somebody else's shoes is perhaps a better word than, and appreciating it from their side. And that's where obviously the variety of mentors can assist and stuff. So,
well, even something like scuba diving. You were talking, you had your scuba diving shop. I mean, I was a master diver. I never did become an instructor. But when you're coaching people and taking people down to depths they're uncomfortable with, or just beginners doing a night dive or something like that, you're dealing with a fear, you're trying to calm their fears, you're going back to basics, and let's do the checklist to elite, so you are doing life coaching in whatever you.
Yes, no, and that's true. And that's true because, again, I suppose you're right that it's almost, we shouldn't be defining life and business.
Exactly.
It's mentoring and coaching. You're right. As I say, a life coach can have, as you say, many business experiences, and a business coach will also have many life experiences, because otherwise we wouldn't have been successful in our businesses, because it is, even though in this strange world of COVID-19 at the moment, it's still about people. It is still about relationships. Okay, if you're buying a commodity, possibly, but even that, there was an emotion or relationship somewhere. You go buy something from Amazon, you're buying it from somebody who's putting it in a box and buying, and there is the emotion, and you then go, well, actually, I'd like to try and support my more local business, and so it's emotional. And I think the other thing that's become quite interesting in this changing world is the video technology has finally caught up, that we're able to do this.
Right.
I'm here, you're there. You've interviewed some of my English colleagues, and so he was in London, and we could be sat in literally across the table.
Right.
But it's also meant that in my world, I've actually got to see some of my clients who I've only ever spoken to on the telephone. Which is really quite amazing. In fact, we found 2 or 3 of them, and I've still got a couple who won't jump on a video call, don't like that, don't want to do it, who I've never seen. Which is quite an amazing thing. But I think that's part of the world really now, being the virtual world, being able to use technology, which is, again, I can only run my business because of technology. The old-fashioned accountant had to be in the building, had to go and see that person. The numbers can whiz their way through the internet, the use of Dropbox and virtual file sharing and things like that. So the power of the internet has changed the whole world of mentoring as well. But I think that the challenge for us as coaches and mentors is how we generate that connection through the screen. Because I know a lot of, again, I've got quite a lot of coaching clients who are having to now go to online presence, and again, some of them have joined through the OnPoint because of the technology that OnPoint is providing as part of the support, which is fantastic. But it's a whole new way of training, because I can get some feel from your emotions and stuff, but I can't see because you're only this sort of big. I can see, whereas if there's but if we were in a room, I get to see whether you were slouching or whether, and I think that's certainly probably slightly easier for, I would guess, and I'm going to throw it back to you in a minute. It's slightly easier for me when I can see a client who's like, because there's more tactile. We're reviewing numbers, we're talking about interpretation and stuff. I mean, how are you finding that as a life coach? And I think we need to stop that as a coach on the emotional side, which I still have well, but you get my feel, you get my drift here. So how are you finding the technology?
Well, it gives you access to more people globally. So I could be talking to, someone in Johannesburg and helping them,
You were last week, I think, weren't you? Was it with the lady last week from Johannesburg, or certainly from South Africa?
Oh, yes. I was talking well, one day it was South Africa, the next day it was Hong Kong.
Wow. Yeah.
And another time it's London. And so I'm trying to get all my time zones right. And I'm trying to find the perfect app where I can see where we all intersect. Because, we're going to be starting our panel discussions about different topics, current event topics, and how we can help mentor and coach people through them. And, I've got to figure out the perfect time where everybody from the world can join. That's going to be a challenge, right? Yeah. For someone, it's going to be 1 a.m. or 11 p.m. or whatever. But speaking of the world, or let's span out a bit in terms of the flow of money, whether it's through an economy or whether it's through an individual. They say money goes to people who value it most. And, the wealth building, so to speak. So, for example, someone wins the lottery. Why is it that when they win the lottery, they tend to squander, or maybe not so much squander, because that sounds frivolous, but they end up losing it all? They give it to their family, they buy things for people. You've seen a lot of people's finances. What's going on there, if you can kind of tie it in with the psychology of where their value of money or wealth building is?
Okay. Well, I think some of that comes down to the mindset of success. Most people don't believe that they have the right to be successful. It's a block number one in one of my mindsets that we talk about. Block to success number one is that you don't feel that you can or are entitled to be successful. And I think that once somebody wins the lotto, there's that thing of, God, how did this happen to me? How did this happen to me? But again, it becomes the emotions take over rather than letting the numbers decide. And it's just the fact that their mindset, and to spin this round the other way, in your opening comment there about why does money go to money? Well, it tends to be because the people who have been successful have managed to move their mindset from being, I don't deserve to be successful, to actually being, I deserve to be successful. There are many of the mindsets out there, and I know that there's an Australian lady, I can't think of her first name, but manifesting the money type thing. I think her program is Lucky Bitch, is the phrase that she has built. And I know Faye's introduced me to it, and that is her product. And it is about positive manifesting for the female entrepreneur. And it's saying you have the right, first of all, you have to have that mindset that I have the right to be successful. It's not about being arrogant, because that's, again, some people can say, well, that's being very arrogant. No, it's just being assertive. It's my opinion. And if I put my mindset to being successful, that's a great start, because there are going to be roadblocks. There's going to be bumps in the road. And you're going to need to surround yourself with positive people, positive signs. And again, some of the things that we teach, all of us teach about, is this mindset. But again, particularly in business, the people who are successful have a specific plan, they have an objective, but they also have this mindset that it is okay to be successful. Many countries, unfortunately, that's held down, particularly, and I think that's one of the things that America in its history has got very good at, in the fact that you have the American dream, as often I refer to it, good, bad, or indifferent. But it's a dream that says you can be president. You can win. You have the right. Now, that's, some people say, oh, that's very American, but it's drilled down to the thing. It's the positive mindset that I have the capability, and if I want to, I am able to do this. Many other countries, and England being an example, you don't go around shouting about your success. Well, unfortunately, if you don't shout about your success, then you're putting yourself in that same mindset that you're not going to be successful, because your subconscious will naturally go to the lowest common point. And if you're subconsciously going, I can't tell people I'm successful, well, then unfortunately, that's a video that you're going to be running in subconsciously. Again, one of the training techniques we talk about come back to the scuba diving. If you're feeling and we do can do the same with obviously life coaching and stuff, which I do some of, but it's creating those videos of success. And that's one of the things we talk about in the Let the Numbers Decide course, is again about how you transition from being this the employee to the entrepreneur. And it's about the mindset that you're changing. So, okay, I'm going to run the video that I'm going to be successful. And you have to find things that you were successful at before. No, it may not be in business. Maybe, that very first night dive that you did, and how the euphoria that you felt after that. Well, the same with success in business. If you can take that and go, okay, today was a pretty bad day. I had loads of expenses and I had no income. Well, if you go to the end of the day feeling, as you can see, I'm already deflated. And when we first got on the when we were both getting ready for this, we both did this. We both pumped ourselves up, and that's a technique, isn't it? That you teach. I'm sure that certainly I've taught the same with scuba diving. That you think about something positive, and your nature becomes positive. So money to money is because they're thinking, I am successful. I want to be more successful. How do I be more successful? Well, guess what? I look at my numbers in real time, and I work with people who are going to be of the same mindset. And we let the numbers decide that, yes, I can take this gamble. No, I shouldn't take that gamble. Are they strong enough to make the powerful decisions today? Yes, they are. They may not be the right decision. I'm not saying that let the numbers decide will always make the right decision. Richard Branson is an amazing entrepreneur. We would all agree with that. Yeah. He launches probably between 100 and 200 companies over a 5-year period. Wow. We don't know those sort of numbers of companies. He has a go at something. I don't think it ever came to the US, but the wackiest one that did actually make it for a little bit, he did virgin weddings.
I did not know that.
That's what he called it. He got himself into the bridal market, and he was selling dresses. But of course, he branded it initially Virgin Weddings, and they tried to make a play on it and stuff. Not one of the better ideas of the view of virgin weddings and stuff. But he is an amazing entrepreneur, because his mindset says, I'm going to try this, and I'm going to let the numbers drive. I'm going to let the numbers be involved, but I have to have some emotion. I'm an emotional sort of chap. You can see lots of energy, and that's why I'm not your typical accountant. I put that in my bio. If you want somebody who's very quiet and sustained, don't come anywhere near me, because you can see that I don't stop talking. I interrupt. I'm handsy. I'm the far from an accountant as you can possibly get, as they say. So, but my clients love it, and if I'm quiet, they're like, "What's the matter? Why are you being so serious?" And I'm like, well, because I'm trying to give you it's a serious topic. No, we much rather when you're fun, because then we know the numbers are okay. Being a teacher, they say. So, but anyway, so Richard Branson, what the numbers can help you with is that if the decision that you've made and the passion and the drive is sending you down this road, and the numbers aren't supporting it, well, then you have to go, what do I need to do to change to keep down this road? Plan A. That's where we're going, but the numbers are going to say, well, maybe plan B might be a road, a sidetrack. The Alice in Wonderland quote, any road will do if you don't know where you're going. And that's same with life, same with the numbers are part of that journey and stuff like that. So so mindset, wealth, and there are lots of blocks, unfortunately, that go through the same thing: specificity and other problems, undervaluing yourself, and and it's a spiral, and you need to work out how to break those. And that's where business mentors, life coaches, coaching, us as a general community, I think, bring more value than people accept or people realize. And it comes back to, again, the fact that they don't believe they can be successful, right? It's a journey that we should do together. And I think that's more, again, that comes back to community, doesn't it? The emotion of side stuff.
My husband and I took a road trip in our Sprinter van around, from Colorado all the way through Lake Tahoe, San Francisco, visited my parents, going down to LA, did that whole round trip thing over a 2-week period. And we did not once listen to a piece of music or the radio or a podcast or audiobook, nothing. We just talked. And you know what we talked about? And this was probably one of the most powerful exercises we did. So, we said, we've taken a couple of kind of wealth mindset courses. Dr. DeMartini has a great one called Where's My Billion? We've also taken, the Laptop Millionaire had some great mindset things. So we kind of combined some of the things we learned. And one of the things we did was, if the universe were to put $1 trillion into our lap, because you need $1 trillion to change the world. Actually, you need several trillion to change the world right now. Because we always think, okay, what would we change? So if the universe gave you $1 trillion, what would you do with it, right? Because if someone said, I'll give you $100,000, you're like, okay, I'm going to buy this, I'm going to buy this. But $1 trillion makes your mind explode, right? So you're not taking a trip to Tuscany, you're not buying the villa or whatever. You're really making a difference thinking, what would I do? We talked everything from healthcare to infrastructure to education was big. And you find out what you really value, because that's where you want to make a difference in the world, right? So we went through each one of those topics that were valuable to us, and it changed the way and expanded our boundaries on what's possible and what difference we want to make and what legacy we want to leave. So, little exercises like that. I was curious to see if you had anything, similar that just makes people believe that, there are no boundaries to what you can achieve with the numbers.
I don't have anything quite as dramatic. I think if I was just thinking while you were explaining, what would I do with that? What would perhaps be my central focus? And I think it would be around education. And, the very fact it would have to be that, coming back to accounting is the language of business. And I would try and, I don't think it's done enough in schools. People come out of school coming, accounting. Well, it wouldn't be accounting, and it would be a business module of such, but it's about wealth. And I think that, wealth creation and the very fact that you talked about a couple of the courses that we all look at later on, possibly. I don't think we intrinsically add enough value in the schooling as to what the world of business, commerce, the world, the numbers, the names get the thing. But even just down to looking after your own money, about personal money management, because personal money management, if we come back to the example earlier about, I'm going to leave my job and set it up. Well, first of all, how much money do you need to earn? And how are you going to change that? I sometimes have clients going, well, I said, you've taken too much money. Well, I need to. I'm like, well, the money's not there. You've taken money that isn't your money. Now, ultimately, it's your money, and I can only tell you that belongs to the government and that belongs to here and stuff. And I can't, but you need to then change your personal mindset as to, well, you didn't need that amount of money 5 years ago or 10 years ago when you left college. So something has changed along the way. And often when they end up in the major debt is that they've taken too much money because they haven't really thought about it. And suddenly it's become, there's only £100 here, there's £500 there. And suddenly after 2 years, you're in debt to a huge amount. And I think that generally the world struggles with that, not just from an accounting perspective, but people coming out of college with student debt, people coming out of college with credit card debt, credit card life. Starbucks plays on our emotion to give them $5 for a cup of coffee. All right. The first thing I normally would say to them, if you're in trouble, how many times do you go to Starbucks? Oh, I go every day on the way to work. Well, we're stopping that because that has got to go. All right. You can buy a flask, you can buy your Yeti, you can put an instant cup of coffee in it for 2 cents. You take that with you. I don't like that. Well, guess what? $5 a day, that's $35 a week. That's up $250 a month. That's $3,000 a year. In 5 years, if I just stop the coffee, I've got you a plan. And that's just one thing that we talked about. So I think, the education, and that's where actually we go all the way back to Faye. Well, isn't that what you tell your clients? And I'm like, yes, so therefore you're a coach and you mentor and you speak. So join this platform that we're creating because of the fact that actually it's exactly what the platform is about and about what you're about, and actually it gives you a wrapper. And I'm going to wrap up with that my whole life outlook recently has been wrapped around education and stuff like that. So yeah, $1 trillion education on money. Back to my Sesame Street. I love to count
the money.
Yeah, so that's cool.
You've brought in quite a few of our mentors, and I'm slowly meeting them as I interview them. And I tell you, one yesterday had a tear of gratitude, and I was so touched, and because it's an opportunity that they didn't even think about, joining as a mentor coach. And I'm not trying to plug. Well, I am trying to plug Envoy, but
we're part of that community now, and it's
But I really do feel like it's becoming a community, and it's fun. It's fun, and everybody seems to really have the same goal, and that is really helping make a difference to people's lives, both individually or a community. And now we're going to be starting to think about, how can we have this little think tank, and how can we solve some of the larger problems with the variety of different mentors and coaches that we have. I mean, we got everything from engineers to, accountants to doctors and lawyers, and so I think it's going to be fun. It's going to be a fun ride.
Exactly. I mean, ultimately, if we as a group can't become the most successful business on the planet, then we should be able to, right mindset, we should be able to take on the world and change things. Exactly, change for the better, because it's the old butterfly effect, isn't it? Butterfly flaps its wings one place to tsunami somewhere else. And I know that's a huge metaphor, but it's true. Small steps, and I think the world's going to need to refocus on some of the planetary things that are happening, because the world has gone. I know we will explore this a lot more in the summit, but the fact the world has gone completely nationalistic, so inward focused, so bipolar on everything, polarized, that the planet is suffering. And of course, COVID hasn't helped with single use, on plastics and stuff. But we've got to find a way, otherwise, there are great minds that we should be able to. Small steps, education,
and
stuff.
Right. So tell me, you've got a number of different courses that are coming out. What are those about? Do you have titles for them, topics for them?
Well, the first one that we're launching is called the Let the Numbers Decide. That's the big course, as I like to call it. From that, that's it's going to be a 6-module. I'm still sort of in development as to the actual, whether it will be a 12-week course or the things. Basically 6 modules. What I'm discovering is that if you make the modules too in depth, people, we get some attrition rates and it becomes too long. So I'm rejigging it a little bit to make it a little bit more result driven, more instantly, because again, if you're trying to launch a business, there's obviously the end goal, but I'm trying to sort of make it happen that it becomes that you, at the end of each module, there is some real wins, some instant gratification, that there's a finish line for each point, so that if you stop after one because you need to then go and do something, that you don't then feel that actually the course is there. So that's the big course that I'm working on, hence Let the Numbers Decide. We've got some sort of smaller training for sort of entrepreneurs around the let me reveal the 3 secret documents of business. The phrase of that one is profits and the sales vanity, profit sanity, cash is king, where we do some basically an hour sort of webinar on those 3 documents and how I bring those to life, so that you can instantly at the end of the hour go back to your own business, and the first question you would be saying to your CPA, if you work with one, is, I haven't seen my numbers for at least 3 weeks or a month or 6 months or 9 months, and oh my God. And he goes, well, that's because you've never asked. I'm like, well, now I'm asking, and I'd like to see this report, and then at least you can go back and look at the training and the questions to ask. So those are the sort of the 2 at the moment. Others coming along. I'm trying not to get what's the word I'm looking for? I've lost my train of thought now. Sorry. I'm trying to remain focused. Apple always says that I tend to try and do this. No, I need to take focus. So, so we'll focus on that. And I think from the big course, I think the aim now is to perhaps produce some modules that will stand alone on their own.
Right.
Because, the big course is like $1,500, so that's quite an investment.
Right.
You get lots more than the $1,500. But I think what I need to do is break them out so that there's smaller, more module courses that fit together and lead nicely in, but give you a start, a middle, and an end, and a finish line that you can go, I achieved something. We want you to be able to say, yeah, I got there, and I've cha-ching, I've achieved something. Positive success.
Yeah, I think the bite-sized pieces is what everybody's looking for these days, because who has time, right? Well,
no, exactly.
I mean, we thought COVID would give us time, and it has given us time in different areas, but it also has made us busier. So
yes, indeed, and stuff. Exactly, adding in as we try to go more global, because COVID's given us the opportunity to go global.
Yeah.
A global market is even hungrier than a niche market, and so hence again, the little scattergun approach can be okay. Now, got to keep coming back, find your niche, and that back to one of your other examples. What would be the other starting point?
Yeah.
A niche, a plan, real time, and be very specific.
Well, on that note, Collin, well, thank you so much for joining us. It's been a great conversation. Let the numbers decide. Now I know what that means.
Indeed. Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay.